I know I make the same joke over and over again. Sorry, steal the same joke over and over again, but it just fits so well in today's video.
Good evening. Tonight my guest is AFL-CIO Chairman George Meany, who will be discussing collective bargaining agreements.
It's a pleasure to be here, Krusty.
Let me be blunt. Is there a labor crisis in America today?
Well, that depends what you mean by crisis.
Today we actually are discussing collective bargaining agreements. But before you guys click off and watch admittedly much more youthful and entertaining content such as groovy music videos of acclaimed British rock band The Darkness, I'll make this promise to you. Today's video will include at least 3 The Darkness references, so keep your eyes and ears peeled. And if you don't know who The Darkness are, like I'm sure anyone under the age of 32 doesn't, look, you have my permission to click off right now and go watch their music videos, as those videos are far more important than the sweeping industrial reforms that Tony Burke, Workplace Relations Minister, and I'm guessing fan of The Darkness, is introducing. But you guys better come back and watch this video afterwards. And to sweeten the deal for your demographic, at some point in this video, I'll also start a beef with a popular Twitch streamer. Guys, throw me a bone. I'm doing anything I can to get you interested in laws that essentially govern how much money you can earn. Unlike that useless fucker Pokimane, who hasn't made a single video on Australia's industrial laws, but has made, what, like 50 defending sweatshops? Scat! Since the coalition seized power in 2013, Australian wages have been stagnating more than Pokimane's content has been stagnating recently. I mean, another video defending child soldiers. Pokimane, we know where you stand on this topic. In the less than 6 years Labor was in power from 2007 to 2013, private sector wages grew 4.2% above inflation. But in the nearly 10 years the coalition were in power, they grew only 1.4%. That's a fucking credit card surcharge level of growth. And this isn't just coincidence because the coalition is just incompetent economic managers. Don't get me wrong, the coalition are incompetent economic managers, but they're incompetent because they actually want this shit. And they're competent in getting what they want. They want low wage growth. Just like Pokimane, they believe in these extremist economic ideals. They want to suppress your wages. As soon as they got in power, the Libs warned of a wage explosion, chastising employers that dared lift their workers' pay. Thank God they were there in time to cut the detonator. Australia Institute economist Richard Dennis points out that the share of Australia's GDP going towards workers also consistently declined over the years that the coalition was in, and that if the wage share of GDP stayed at the levels it was under Labor in 2013, workers would be taking home an extra $49 billion this year. Each! $49 billion. That's a credit card surcharge amount of money. If you're at some dodgy Chinese restaurant that really wants you to pay in cash. So, long and the short of it, a lot of money. A 2021 study from the McKell Institute found that this wage slowdown robbed from workers, on average, $254 a week. But now we have Labor back in government, wages not even keeping up with inflation. What are they going to do to put cash back in your pocket? Well, this is where the new industrial relations reforms come in. Tony Burke was like, I believe in a thing called love, specifically for Australian workers. So he's introduced a broad sweeping bill that cuts a whole lot of red tape out of Australia's workplace laws, making it easier for unions to negotiate for better conditions. Under the current laws, multi-employer bargaining is quite heavily regulated, meaning that if workers employed by different entities in the same industry, such as cleaning, want to negotiate together to achieve better conditions, they have to get permission from the minister. This leads to sporadic agreements limited to individual employers and their employees, and makes it much more difficult for unions to push for broad industry-wide wage increases. Tony Burke has said that even some employers get the shits as they're ready to negotiate together with the union and employees, but they then have to get ministerial permission. So when Labor got into power, they held their Jobs and Skills Summit, which basically was that classic Krusty episode. And during this summit, the Australia Council of Trade Unions pushed for industry-wide bargaining, and surprise, surprise, union shill Tony Burke is kinda doing what they want him to do. Who'd have thought the Labor Party would care this much about Labor? Does Tony Burke have some sort of connection with the unions? Peter Credlin presents Sorry to Labour the Point. Burke has introduced the Secure Jobs Better Pay Bill. How could you hate a bill with a name like that? Labor are even better at naming their industrial relations reform bills. I mean, what the did the coalition name theirs again? Oh, that's right, the Omnibus Bill. What a sus title. ScoMo may as well have called it the Trojan Horse Bill. How good is this big horse statue? How aesthetically pleasing. I, for one, think we should let it in. It was a shit bill. Thank God it didn't pass. It would have pushed down wages even further. But Labor's Secure Jobs Better Pay bill addresses some of the issues that have kept your wages low for so long. It allows for multi-employer bargaining. As expected, the press are ramping up a bit of a scare campaign over this aspect of the bill with the usual Labor's giving unions too much power angle. But Burke shut it down by pointing out, I don't think that there's a problem with cleaners having too much power in this country. Watch this.
The government appears to be on a collision course with some business groups thanks to new laws on workplace agreements. Tony, these laws are your baby.
Yep,
you say they're going to raise wages for a lot of people, but there is concern that you're giving unions too much power. Is that the case?
Look, the discussions with business groups behind the scenes are somewhat better than are happening through the media at the moment, and there's some constructive conversations. I flagged in the speech when I introduced the bill that there's further amendments that we're open to and looking constructively at. The thing that I won't compromise, though, on is the need to get wages moving. The areas that have been held back are areas like childcare, areas like aged care. They're not militant workplaces.
It's actually disgraceful that journalists even dare ask questions like that. These are well-paid, powerful people trying to pretend that unions representing childcare workers are dangerous. Good thing, it's kind of hard to run a scare campaign on this aspect of the bill, isn't it? Child chimney sweep characters are already at an all-time low in high-end literature. Now Labor's gonna give childcare workers and cleaners the ability to ask that their pay keeps up with inflation. Do you really want cleaners not living in poverty? Nonetheless, nothing is going to stop the press and employer advocacy groups from trying to run this scare campaign. Employer advocacy groups, that is a bit of a weird concept. It is a bit like NAMBLA or Clubs New South Wales. Just very gross that these entities even exist. Some of these groups are threatening a multi-million-dollar campaign against Labor over these reforms. A multi-million-dollar campaign to convince you that you don't deserve an extra $250 a week. This really could be like the mining tax campaign that played a pivotal role in prematurely ending the last Labor government. And that's not just me speculating. These guys are threatening that unless Labor capitulates to their demands, they will run a campaign like the mining tax campaign, but quote, on steroids. Terrorists. Domestic terrorists. And that's why it's really important you get out the message about these reforms to everyone you know. It's why I started this beef with Pokimane. I needed to get the message out. Despite what you might hear in the press, Labor's reforms will make you better off. The bill also has some other great elements. It'll give the Fair Work Commission the power to resolve industrial disputes when unions and business are at loggerheads. It'll make it easier for workers to get back their hoodoost wages, upping the cap on small claims that they can go whinge to the Fair Work Commission about from $20,000 to $100,000. Labor's reforms will also force employers to come to the table and negotiate flexible working arrangements with their employees if they're requested to do so. Strangely, that was the one part of the bill that Scott Morrison was oddly keen on. As my employer, you guys have to accommodate my request to work from Hawaii. These are reforms that will really benefit workers. But even the seemingly non-controversial aspects of the bill are being attacked. Fairfax put out this editorial the other day titled, "You're going too fast, Labor. Make like wage growth and slow the down." Sorry, my bad. It was actually called Industrial Relations Bill Debate Must Be Informed and Unhurried. Listen to this paragraph from it. Business groups are concerned about a provision which will allow certain workers, such as parents with young children and those over 55, more rights to appeal if their employers refuse a request for flexible hours. Building companies also hate the decision to disband the Australian Building and Construction Commission, which has been effective in reducing bullying tactics by unions on building sites. Every time bullying. Perhaps the most controversial proposal in the bill, however, will allow unions to take strike action against several employers at once in pursuit of the same list of demands. How fucking insane. Journalists with the easiest jobs in the country sitting there tut-tutting other workers potentially getting flexible hours. Not to mention defending the Australian Building and Construction Commission. I've done videos on that, but it should really just be retitled Push Down Dare Ice Coffee Sales Commission. Why? Because it kills builders. That's the joke. Hey, You think I'm being insensitive? I want that commission gone. Almost as much as I want Blue Water High back on television. No, I'm actually not that young, but for a moment there you did believe that I was. And that's what keeps me young. Just like the construction workers the ABCC kills. So good thing it's gone. I'll tell you what isn't gone though. My razor sharp segue ability. And on that note, what did we learn today? They bad good. And did you guys spot the 3 The Darkness references? You didn't? Suck shit, that's because I only made one. Look, you're watching an entire video about collective bargaining with the shining carrot of some shagadelic darkness references that I didn't deliver. That was just to teach you a lesson. Trust no one, especially not the press. Not even Geordie's here. But you can trust your union, and you can trust the Secure Jobs Better Pay bill. And if that doesn't convince you, you're probably a warlord like popular Twitch streamer Pokimane and Hassan Piker. And I heard that guy defends child soldiers as well. Let's see if he has the guts to front these accusations live on Twitch.
Please share and comment below. Comment.